Thank you for joining us for voter education and outreach in the historic 2024 elections. My name is Neil Parekh. I'm the executive producer of this show. We have a great panel here today. The show is going to be hosted by and moderated by Professor Walter Greason from Macalester College. He's a professor of history there. Other speakers will include Detria Everson, president and CEO of the John and Lillian Miles Lewis Foundation. We have Shawna Vercher, the political fixer. She's going to be talking about voter SOS. We also have Sree Sreenivasan, who is the president of the South Asian Journalists Association and the co-founder and CEO of Digimentors. We are live on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and the Graphic History Company website. Please let us know where you're watching from. Please like, comment, share, retweet, tag your friends. Let them know we're going to be talking about everything that is important right now and how important it is to make sure that people get out and vote. We'll talk about voter education and outreach efforts in various communities and various geographies. We are so thrilled to be working with so many great people. Again, Detria Everson from the John and Lillian Miles Lewis Foundation, Shawna Vercher, and Sree Sreenivasan will be our speakers. Our host is Walter Greason, professor of history at Macalester College. He's also the managing director of the Graphic History Company, which we'll hear more about. And stay tuned for the very end because we're going to be sharing not just some drawings that our illustrator, Tim Fielder, is going to be working on through the show, but he's also going to be sharing a new comic about Kamala Harris that will be distributed in the next 2 days. So stay tuned. We should go for about an hour, but it's going to be a great hour. And now, without further ado, I want to introduce my good friend, Professor Walter Greason. Walter, the show is yours. Show is yours, my friend.
Thanks so much, Neil. Amazing to be here with you. Thank you for putting this all together. Honored to be here on behalf of the Graphic History Company, Digimentors, and all of our guests. This conversation is a continuation of programs that we've done for several years with lots of different organizations across the United States that focuses on voter education and outreach. How do we get more information, reliable information, to the people who need to make the decisions in a democratic society? How, in this last week of campaigning, can we help people make the most informed choice? The work that we do with the Graphic History Company is set to go out to the world and reach the maximum number of people. On various projects on social media, we've reached tens of millions or hundreds of millions, even over 1 billion people with the work. But more importantly, we need to get people who maybe haven't been as engaged up to this point. And that's why the time and the place and the format are so important. Voter outreach is crucial to being empowered and realizing our power as citizens. The education that we provide helps people sort through difficult issues that are often have contradictory information, things that can be very confusing trying to sort through by ourselves. And so tonight we bring together a panel of experts who have extraordinary expertise in helping us decipher everything that's going into the United States elections in 2024. I'm going to introduce our panelists one at a time, and they'll be added to the screen. This panel is an amazing group. We're very fortunate to have them all together on this historic occasion. I'll introduce all of them to you first, then we'll chat with each of them one by one before going into a group discussion and Q&A from the audience. First up is Detria Everson. Hey, Detria.
Hello.
Detria is the president and CEO of the John and Lillian Miles Lewis Foundation. Before his passing in 2020, Congressman Lewis created the John and Lillian Miles Lewis Foundation, JLM-LF, to carry on his and his wife's passion for purposeful living. Civic engagement and voting were the obvious major priorities for Congressman Lewis, who happens to be one of my personal heroes. He and so many others nearly lost their lives to do what we're about to do next week. Detria, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Greason.
So now we're going to meet Shawna Vercher. She is an expert in political and media consulting and is known as the political fixer. She is going to be talking about voter education and outreach, particularly in North Carolina and Florida. She has worked for several political candidates, including Barack Obama. She has also worked for the community of Parkland, Florida, after the school shooting, and has done a lot of work as a mental health advocate. Shawna, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
And now we'd like to call to the stage Sree Sreenivasan. Hey there.
Hello.
Sree is the president of the South Asian Journalists Association. He is actually a co-founder who put it together 30 years ago and returned to lead again this year. He was a professor of journalism for 20 plus years at Columbia University and also served as their chief digital officer. He also held the same role at the Metropolitan Museum of Art and the City of New York. He is the co-founder and CEO of DigiMentors, our co-sponsor for tonight, a digital, social, events, and AI consulting and training company. His firm is producing the show. Sree, it is always a pleasure to be with you.
I just want to say I only have 3 books behind me: my dad, my late mom, and your book and Tim's book. And Detria, I want to show you, this is my Twitter profile photo and has been for a decade plus. It was an honor of a lifetime to meet the congressman and be inspired by him. And Shawna, such a pleasure to get to know you in the last few weeks. Thank you. And thank you all for everything you're doing.
It's a joy to be here. So let's get the conversation started. We're going to start with Detria. And so, Detria, the John and Lillian Miles Lewis Foundation is focusing on high school voter registration and outreach. Why are you focusing on high school students, and how does this fit into the overall work of the foundation?
Well, Dr. Greason, one, I want to say thank you for this amazing opportunity to join you in this esteemed panel tonight. One, I just want to say that it is just like so many others, as you mentioned earlier, that Congressman Lewis is one of your heroes. He also was one of mine and so many others as well. And so I appreciate you all for allowing us to be with you this evening. You know, it is amazing to think about the work that we do here at the John and Lillian Miles Lewis Foundation. As you ask about, you know, our commitment is to strengthening democracy through civic engagement and fairness and justice. And our goal is to really amplify, you know, the rising voices of our future generation. So everything we do, from the archiving work of Congressman Lewis's papers to our amazing partnering with colleges and universities across the United States, to the national and international fellowship programs that we assist and host civic tours for young people, everything we do is focused on making sure our young people in this generation become familiar with history, the history of voting, the history of the civil rights movement, and that is at the core of what we do. Our goal is to make sure young people are well informed. You know, there's been a lot of emphasis on and attention to first-time voters and young voters in this election season. And so to fulfill our mission, it's imperative that we focus on high school students as they approach and reach the voting age. Now, remember, Congressman Lewis himself was a young man in his generation. And so that is when his civic engagement journey began. And so for us, it has been amazing to do this work, and we'll continue to focus on high school students because that is the age in which we think is one of the most important ages to engage students around civic engagement.
Extraordinary. Thank you so much. And we have a little extra time, so I wanted to see, how do we actually learn more about the foundation, and have you seen youth activists already? Like, have you been able to connect with young people over this election season?
We have, you know, there's research that shows here in Georgia that less than 50% of our 18-year-olds are registered to vote. So this age group is one we focused on primarily because it fits right within, our mission and what we want to do. We have been fortunate to work with several of our school districts. In particular, we work with Drew Charter School here in Atlanta. They set an ambitious goal to get every voting age senior in position and registered to vote, as well as to ensure they have actually are making their ways to the polls, if not before, on November 5th. And so we want to continue to focus on efforts like this. It took the leadership of their head of schools, Principal Meyer, and one of their amazing leaders, Leslie Gata Schaefer, who has been leading this effort. And so for us, we've seen a lot of students. One, it was beautiful to see a call to action that was led by one of the seniors at Drew Charter School. The students at Drew Charter School actually decided to do a group voter registration at the foot of Congressman Lewis's new monument that stands in Decatur, Georgia. And so they took a very special field trip that the school was willing to support, and these students all went together. And so we had an amazing day where they led a few speeches, but led by one young 17-year-old young man who did an amazing call to action. And in like fashion for this generation, these students used their cell phone to register to vote, which is available here in Georgia. And so we were excited for them to use the technology that we see them do so much other things with. But on this particular day, they all stood in front of Congressman Lewis's statue and registered to vote. And for us, it was one of the most amazing things. We have seen not just this type of call to action and actions by these young people. We work with our college campuses. More recently, we spent time with students from Spelman College, my alma mater. We also spent time with students at Georgia Tech and Georgia State in an amazing conversation around, youth activism and student engagement and civic engagement, what that means and how it looks for this generation. And we have seen several students who are what we call good troublemakers, using their voice to amplify issues that are important to them and educating themselves and their colleagues about what is important, not just in this election, but for their future.
Absolutely. And that's actually, I'm going to take a little bit to ask one additional question before we move on. I have students from my classes here in Minnesota who are studying civil rights this semester and studying particularly Black women leaders. So it's amazing to have you lead our conversation tonight. I wanted to make sure that they get an introduction to John Lewis from you. So could you tell them a little bit more about John Lewis's story?
Sure. Congressman Lewis was an amazing civil rights icon in the eyes of many. He was a person who was inspired and led by his mentors that he always remembers to promote. He talks about, how he was inspired by Rosa Parks and her movement and her decision to sit down that day. He talks about hearing, Dr. King's voice across the radio that inspired him and galvanized him to want to help make his world better. But also he's a person that led by action. He led in a level of peace, raised by an amazing family that had strong belief and faith. And he uses that upbringing that started in Alabama to help him do the work that he's done, not only in just standing up and being very active in college and working with SNCC and leading SNCC for a number of years, but also to freedom rides and sit-ins that he participated in, really putting himself in harm's way to make life better for many of us today. And so Congressman Lewis is someone who not only did a lot of civic engagement work and voter outreach engagement initiatives across his career, he then turned his life from just being an outsider, so to speak, in a political space to running for office, being successful in running for office, and then being able to serve not only in Atlanta City Council, but then moving on to be a U.S. representative representing the 5th District of Georgia for over 34 years. And so we are honored to be carrying on his legacy and continuing the legacy both he and his wife, Lillian Lewis, led and the example that they set for us. So Congressman Lewis, an amazing civil rights icon, a person of faith, and someone who inspires us all.
Thank you so much. Now, for me, this example of the work that he did and the courage he showed in organizing absolutely changed my life, and is always the touchstone I return to when I need to find my guiding star. So it's just a tremendous honor to be in conversation with you and help support that legacy in this moment. We are at the point we need to move to the next stage of the conversation. So I'd like to add Shawna to the screen. Hey, good to see you again.
There.
And so you've been working in politics for several years. What are you seeing now, particularly in your home state of Florida and in North Carolina? How did the hurricanes impact voters and potential voters?
Well, first, I want to echo her sentiments and just thank you so much, not only for having us here, but for having the conversation at all. It's such a critical time, and I love that you're using your platform for such an important cause and getting as many people as possible engaged. This is a historic election, and I'm someone who has been involved in politics for over 2 decades now at a very close level.
Mhm.
And it's unlike anything I've seen, including with the work with Barack Obama's campaign and others. While those definitely were historic movement building campaigns, what we're seeing now is something that's reaching deep into the heart of this country in places that honestly we felt were unreachable before. People who felt like they didn't belong in the conversation, like their votes didn't matter. We're hearing stories of people that are waiting over an hour and a half in places like deep South Tennessee and North Dakota, and it's just unheard of. So to hear people feeling like their voices matter is just a beautiful thing that we're witnessing and doing our best to help facilitate. I'm based in the Tampa Bay area. I grew up in Texas, and even growing up on the Gulf Coast, these last hurricanes really surprised us and just devastated certain communities in a way that caught us completely off guard, particularly in communities in Western North Carolina, South Florida, and parts of Tampa Bay. And as we were doing our organizing work, we realized that there was a major problem where a lot of the people who had requested their mail ballots had not, the farthest thing from their minds, understandably, was returning them. But even so, as they started to claw out of the shock and the devastation of what impacted their communities, there was a barrier where we had mail trucks that were underwater, precinct locations that had been washed away, and mail ballots that were being sent to homes that no longer existed. So we worked with partnering organizations and advocates across the country to launch Voter SOS, and we started reaching out to these communities using social campaigns, a good old fashioned calling tree, and some texting, and very targeted ads. And I'm happy to say we're seeing not only these ballots getting turned in, fantastic work by governors on both sides of the aisle in North Carolina and in Florida, adjusting the rules and the regulations to make sure that those impacted can still cast their votes if necessary, even if a mail ballot was sent to them. And then also, we're seeing them take their voices in their own hands, so to speak, and go cast early votes in person if they don't have a mail ballot in hand. So I'm happy to say that when in places like Georgia, in Florida, and North Carolina, we are still poised to hit some record breaking numbers, even with the hardship that all of those states have faced.
Such vital insight. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I do have an additional question for you as well. As you're seeing this over several election cycles, how do you describe the change in enthusiasm, intensity, participation from these larger numbers of voters? Because I agree, like this has been a change in the last decade that I hadn't seen as just someone interested in voter organizing. Um, in 30 years, it's just a different tone and atmosphere.
You know, it's interesting to me because I served proudly on the Obama campaign in 0708 for 23 months. I actually refer to that campaign as my second child because I had toddler and then I had him. It just was a life-changing experience. And I remember getting teased by some people because of his hope slogan. And I was quick to remind people that one of the bravest things that you can do is hope and believe that things can be better. And I feel like what we're seeing right now is not just a joy, but a courage. We are seeing people find that light where they believe and they are going to take it upon themselves to build a more perfect union. And I just think that there is such a beauty. I understand that some people think that politics is toxic, and of course that can be true. But what we're seeing right now from all walks of life, from all corners of our country, is this beautiful movement building where people are saying that they're here, they want to be at the table, and they're reaching a hand back for their neighbors. And I just think it's been a long time coming. I think this movement is building on the shoulders of so many others, including, of course, Congressman Lewis and so many powerful voices. So honestly, I feel like this is a generation that's getting the pleasure of reaping the fruits of what others have sown. And I'm just really proud to be just a little tiny spark in all of this.
I'm going to say there's a very famous quote from classic literature about being the spark that lights the fire that becomes the flame that then turns into the raging inferno. And so we're grateful for all of that in the work that you do.
Thank you.
And so now we call up Sree, who I've had the pleasure of working with on a number of different projects, but always with DigiMentors and the New York Times Read Along. All set. Good. So, Sree, the South Asian community has been growing in prominence over the last several years. I know what Kamala Harris's nomination has meant to the African American community. What did it mean to the South Asian community? Did it change education and outreach efforts?
It absolutely did. But I just want to start by saying I've already learned so much in your conversation with our fellow panelists. This is such an educational opportunity. Those of us who watch so much television, consume so much news, we think we've already understood everything there is to understand, but we haven't. And I've already learned so much, and I'm so grateful to be part of this conversation. For the South Asian community, this is a very powerful moment. When we look back to 30, 40 years, the South Asian community has had moments where we have seen the community being paid attention to in politics for good and bad reasons, but nothing like what we're seeing now. When Vice President Harris was nominated in 2020, of course, there was a lot of attention to her and her story, but this is a very special moment. When it happened this summer, when President Biden stepped aside in an enormous act of courage and strength and kindness and grace to step aside for a woman of color who happened to be Black and South Asian, those of us in the South Asian community who know our history, who know how much we owe to Black folks, Latino folks, that we could now have an opportunity to see someone like Kamala Harris at the precipice of this opportunity of where she could go, where she has already reached. We shouldn't forget that her already being the prosecutor and attorney general of San Francisco, and then of California, and then a senator itself, were things that we had not imagined would be possible. To see her get there has been very important for the community, and we have seen the outreach efforts, including organizations that sprung up overnight, that followed in the footsteps of the Black women for Kamala that first came up, and then everyone else who followed. I think has been very inspirational to see. At the same time, the South Asian community, just like the Black community or any other community, isn't just one monolith. We have seen that there have been folks who are not her supporters, who, one of the things that we talk about is that there is going to be, no matter what happens in and around the White House, a South Asian in January, because the second lady, Usha Vance, is South Asian, as you know, of Indian origin, or it'll be the president herself. So in so many ways, this is so historic.
That point you just made is so vital. I had seen an essay in the last couple of days that talked about the range of South Asian voices in American politics. And so years ago, I had done work that introduced me to Jhumpa Lahiri, that had then gotten me in touch with some of the very strong conservative leaders that had come out in South Asian communities. But the article spoke about Nikki Haley, Vivek Ramaswamy, and then, of course, Kamala Harris. And so how are the conversations happening in your networks, both personal and professional, about the expanding range of voices on all sides of American politics?
I think it's crucial that we continue to have that opportunity to hear people who are interested in various things, including we didn't mention Bobby Jindal, who
yes,
governor of Louisiana and a congressman. But, decades, that was 50 years after, Dilip Singh Sound became the first Asian American congressman, even before an East Asian became congressman from the 48 states. We had Dilip Singh Sound from California. And then this gap until Bobby Jindal, very conservative politician. And so I think we are, this is a sign of growth within the community and awareness. And one of the things that we have noted is that there are about 400,000 South Asian voters in the swing states that were decided the last time by 360,000 votes. Yeah. So just the South Asian community can make a difference, and voter outreach efforts, making sure people understand the issues here, really matter.
Absolutely. And so at this point, we need to get everybody into the conversation simultaneously. So thank you, Sree. Let's bring back both Detria and Shawna. All right. Oh, look at this. We're getting comments in from our audience. Good Trouble lives on with great representation through Ms. Detria Everson. Thank you so much, Phyllis Morrow. Oh, Suit Up for Rec. We got special fans in the audience. Beautiful introduction of the late Rep. John Lewis. Thank you. Thank you. Linda Bernstein, wonderful description of all Kamala has done. Thank you so much for joining with us this evening. And Sree gets to double up. Learning so much from the amazing co-panelists. Love it. So I'll be honest with you. In the last 3 months, as things have really accelerated down the home stretch, so many people, not just students that I see in school, but traveling around the country doing the work for graphic history, people are so concerned about what comes after Election Day. And we'd seen what happened in 2020 into 2021, just the contested legal process leading up to the states certify their electoral votes, and then the process of how electoral vote challenges happen in the Congress before you even have protesters outside on January 6th. And then the even after January 6th, 2021, leading up to Inauguration Day for President Biden, the security concerns and the wonder about, for the first time since John Adams, would a former president peacefully surrender power in transition? People are asking me, what are the next steps? Are we prepared, better prepared than we were in 2020 and 2021 for whatever result comes? And so I wanted to put that in front of each of you and see what your thoughts are beyond Election Day. So Detria, we'll start with you.
Well, one thing I'll say is that, we live in a democracy, and that democracy is stronger when we all follow the democratic rules. And a peaceful transfer of power is the least thing that we expect. It is what we had taken for granted for so long. And now it's one of the things that we are all watching, to be sure continues after every election, not just the presidential election, but every election across our United States. And that's what's important. And so for us, our strategy remained the same about what we do and the work that we continue in honoring and sharing the legacy of Congressman Lewis. But I agree with you. We are at a point now where, we happen to watch and see what happens. And, I just want to say, for those people who have taken their time to volunteer and help our democratic process, carry it out by volunteering at these polls, and the election boards who spend tireless hours working to make sure they're certifying the votes and things of that nature. We want to, one, say thank you to them for the amount of time and efforts they've given tremendously across the United States. And most importantly, we want to make sure they're continuing to be protected and supported as they do this very important work for all of us. And so, we too are watching, and we're excited about, our work continuing, really regardless of the outcome, because the work that we do on behalf of Congressman Lewis continues to focus on democracy. It focuses on education, it focuses on youth, and it focuses on making sure that, we have a strong democracy and everyone has a chance to exercise their voice.
Absolutely. Shawna?
Yeah, I think those are such really amazing points. I do believe that everyone is better prepared now. I think it's hard to try to do guesswork and try to combat a theoretical, but now we know that there are certain people that are undermining some of our democratic processes, and I think that while that is unfortunate and definitely cannot be tolerated in a healthy democracy, there's also, a beauty to that. I know I always go there, but this is how I think. I believe that there's an optimism to be found there in the fact that so many people then banded together to make our democracy stronger, and that work does continue. Our work isn't over on election day, it's just beginning, no matter what happens. And for our part, what we're doing at the Political Fixer team, our team is already getting ready to do a couple of things in the short term. And this is where I think everyone listening and watching can help. It's so important that we not stay silent in the days and months ahead. Whatever this does look like, it's going to require that we all are helping to amplify the truth and share the stories of what's actually going on and bring people encouragement and facts as this plays out in the next weeks and months. And then from there, we're looking 2 steps ahead into mental health and recovery, because candidly, this has been extremely traumatizing for a lot of people. And that was on top of the trauma from the pandemic and everything that entailed. Many of us lost people, and all of us lost experiences and moments in our lives, and then that's on top of the trauma of what we saw that led to the Black Lives Matter movement, which I think we just kind of bounced from one trauma to another and never healed. So what I'm hoping is that after we get past inauguration safely and securely, that then we can look on rebuilding an even stronger union. But that includes taking care of the citizens of that country as well, and practicing some self-care and healing.
Absolutely. Thank you. Sree, what do you think?
One of the things that struck me about how America deals with things compared to Europe is that here we don't talk about our traumas. We don't do enough to pay attention to what has happened. Of course, you've seen the backlash against talking about slavery, talking about the Civil War, all of that. But just think of this rally that happened in the city I'm in now, in New York, a throwback rally to the Nazi rally in Madison Square Garden in 1939. I can't tell you how many people I talked to had never heard that happened, because we don't talk about it. We won the war, and therefore the Nazis are not part of our consciousness. That happened here, and so when this echo happens this time, people don't have the context. This just another Trump rally. That's not what it was, and we saw how Elon Musk and all those people, including someone who came from Israel, called it a Nazi rally. He said, I don't normally go to Nazi rallies, but here I am. It's kind of shocking. But it doesn't hit us because that in Poland, in Germany, people go and are fully educated about what happened in that country. Not enough Brits talk about the imperialism that they perpetrated in the world, but they are aware of it, at least to some degree. We don't do that here, and we're paying that price now. So we hope that the elections turn out in a certain way because of the peaceful transfer of power that's needed. But if it isn't, we all have to be vigilant, and we all have to participate. There's so many clever videos going around that you've all seen, but one of them struck me where they're saying, "Oh, am I too political for you?" And then they give a reason that they've become political. And so a series of people saying, fighting back when people say, "Oh, you're too political," saying that this matters to my wife, to me, to my children, whatever. The use of technology and TikTok and all these video memes and everything else has been one of the things that I've noticed and I'm excited about.
Absolutely. And so I'll take a moment just to tell you the story that provoked me to offer that question. In 2020, one of my senior colleagues at a job had supported Donald Trump's presidential campaign, and basically made the point of saying, well, the country and the world needs to adapt to what the conservative vision is for the 21st century. And in doing so, it really stopped me and made me think, how many can make that transition in the wake of trying to believe something totally opposite? And I think that's the moment we're approaching Tuesday, when it starts to be 9 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Eastern, midnight Eastern. Half the country, either way, is going to have to kind of reevaluate their fundamental assumptions and thoughts about their neighbors and about what they see in their future. And I remember in 2016 the kind of shock for people who had run and supported Hillary Clinton, and their inability to really stop and say, okay, what is the future going to be? I think very famously, Saturday Night Live played a very lamenting version of Hallelujah to kind of signal a moment of national mourning. And yeah, it was because Dave Chappelle was hosting that, and he had to speak to that same kind of pain that these people, their beliefs had been shattered. And so we're in this moment now where I'm having a lot of conversations on both sides about how to extend grace and generosity to people who have suffered trauma and feel like they've been told their voices cannot be heard. And that's something it's huge in a democracy. And again, we don't practice that. We tend to see the people who disagree with us as dangers, and that's true in some cases. There are people who will take on political violence and create issues for those who disagree with them. But for me, looking back to Dr. King and Congressman Lewis and so many of the legends of freedom in the 21st century, there's this moment that has to be about reconciliation and the way that we gracefully bring people back to the table so that there can be compromise, so there can be common wisdom. And that's hard. It's so hard. And being an educator and someone who has to reconcile different views every day in the classroom, where students can get very angry at each other and not know how to process their disagreements. There's a big deal in trying to find a way to stretch beyond our norms. And I mean, we see this. There are some people, I would say, there's Liz Cheney, who could have never imagined trying to find common ground with Kamala Harris a couple months ago, but really stretched herself to say, okay, how do I find a commitment to the Constitution that we share, even though we disagree in many areas? So it's that kind of process that I wonder at and think about following the election. What do we do? And I think I saw someone on the news last night talk about a family that had been torn apart, where the son had to send the father to jail because he participated in January 6th. That kind of process, yeah, Shawna's point about trauma, recovery, healing, we all individually and as a society need to take more time to heal. And that's a big piece of what, very happily, in the case of graphic history and our work in New York City, that's been a very healing space for a lot of people to come together over music, come together over different stories and memories that they share. So to get back into the space where we're having conversation, I know we're doing pretty good on time, y'all. This has been pretty amazing. Eddie Everson, our future looks good. Thanks for keeping democracy alive, finding good trouble. It's like our all-stars are showing up in the box. I love it. Arlene Nia Salandi, getting in good trouble to take the democracy forward. Well said, Detria. Beautiful. Love it. Let's see who else is out there. Phyllis with the question. Thank you. Let's be real. I believe if Trump loses, do you think January 6th can return? It may. What do you think? Who'd like to jump on the likelihood of something, the massive protest that may follow? Yeah, Shawna.
So I don't know if any of you, especially some of you that might be in New York, have ever been in New Year's Eve when the ball drops. We had an opportunity to do that before, and it's chaos. It's, but it's secure. And they do a lot with screening, with transportation, with how they allow you into that area. And I think that this time preparation is key. And I would expect something like that to occur where precautions are being taken. You're probably not going to be able to bring in all of the gear and umbrellas and things that maybe you would like, but there's going to be enhanced security. And then once you're through those gates, it is going to, I think, be an environment of celebration and joy. On the back end, the things that we don't get to see that I've had some briefings on in the work that I do include military style drills that they were doing. Actually, just yesterday evening, they had 12 helicopters that were taking off and landing and doing different drills outside of the Capitol, doing things to make sure they were prepared. There's been extra drills that have been happening with the local police forces and, of course, the Capitol Police. And they've also been doing some active listening in our intelligence agencies. So I think the element of surprise only acts, it only works once. And this time, I believe in our men and women in the armed forces and in security and our men and women in blue. I think that they take this as a very sacred responsibility. We have to keep in mind that they lost some folks on January 6th. And so I think don't let the fear take over, because that's just, fear and worry is paying a debt before it's due, right? And I hope that we can lean into kind of honoring the moment. And if nothing else, get rid of the worry and get to work is what I like to say. Put that energy to good use and don't twist yourself up there.
Yes, indeed. Other folks, thoughts or even questions for each other that maybe have occurred as we've gone through?
One of the things I want to share, you mentioned something about, the ability for people to have conversation and dialogue and talking to people that they think or never thought they might spend time, conversing with. I think that's one of the lessons we also take from Congressman Lewis. There was not an opportunity that he passed up to speak to people who may not have thought the same way that he thought. He worked with people who may not have believed all the things that he believed. He had people who he knew he had opposing views, but he did not shy away from the necessary and civil conversations. And that is what I hope that we continue to push forward, civil conversations where we can continue to learn from one another, because there is something to be learned from people who do not think and act like you at all times. And I think if we continue to remember that, that's one of the ways in which we can continue to uphold his legacy. It's been amazing during this, this year and past few years to hear people, quote Congressman Lewis and say things about who he was and how he lived his life and the example that he left for us. And what I'm hoping is that we can bring more of that civility back to everything that we do. And so I think that is one of the things that I think of most when you talk about, the unusual conversations that people are having.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much. Other questions or comments for folks on the panel for each other?
I have a question for Sree, if I might.
Absolutely.
I watched the 2016 election results with some friends of mine in the Muslim community, and I remember watching, in particular, certain people just hugging their children a little closer and a little bit of fear kind of grabbing hold that evening. I'm curious in your community how you are wrestling with, yes, being involved, but kind of how do you address the fear that some communities might have about peaceful transfers of power or what might happen if this or that person is elected? Can you share a little bit about what those conversations are like right now?
Sure, I will. I will also say that when we had Walter talk about that SNL in 2016, which is this time it'll be the Saturday after on November 9th. I looked to see if they've announced who is hosting, and Dave Chappelle turns out not just did 2016, he did 2020, he did 2022. And so I presume he's going to be the one coming back this time again. And that conversation, everyone should go and watch that 2016, which started with the Hallelujah, Kate McKinnon dressed as Hillary Clinton. It was such a powerful entire episode, including Chris Rock coming and making a cameo with Dave Chappelle and a group of white folks watching the elections. You had to laugh, because if you don't laugh, you will cry in these moments. But one of the things that we're talking about in the South Asian community, in Muslim communities, Arab communities, as you know, there are people who say they're speaking on behalf of all Muslims and are going out of their way to say vote in a certain way, even though they know that the result is going to be more pain for the community and the issues they believe in. So it's a fascinating moment. It would be something that professors of history like Walter will be teaching one day. The problem is that it's today and we're living it in real time with lives at stake. And that's where I think in one of the more surreal moments, Walter, speaking of hip hop, Luke Campbell is out with a video of all people. For those of you who know your history, 1989, Two Live Crew came out with an album, As Nasty as They Want to Be, which is really nasty. And here he is now talking as an older man, talking to black men and saying, you're thinking of sitting out this election, and giving what could have been a professor speaking. And if you haven't seen it, you have to see it, to say just one more example of how our world is turned upside down.
Yeah, no, there have been a lot of hip hop MCs who have turned to the worse, as we see in some cases, but also have become extraordinarily informed and educated and powerful leaders in a number of ways across the country. I got the word from our production team. We may have a few more comments from our audience. Amberly Austin, thank you. Very proud of the work and continued commitment of the John and Lillian Miles Lewis Foundation. These conversations must continue. Peaceful process in all elections. Absolutely. Thank you for that emphasis. And Suda Correct, good to see you. It saw it on TV that 68% of people in the United States are stressed out due to the unusual election tension. This time it is a unique situation indeed. The exhaustion that people have experienced is just tremendous. And so we all need to have some time to have our favorite beverage and just enjoy some music, spend some time, and just enjoy being together. We need that. We need that through the holiday season.
This week is going to be a long month. That's what I.
Brilliant.
Sanara, I want to make sure I say that correctly. Sanara Reese, amazing work on behalf of the John and Lillian Lewis Foundation. I'm excited to see the current and future endeavors regarding engagement of our youth in the freedom fight, Great job. Look at the foundation look at the audience flooding for the Lewis Foundation. I love to see it. My dear sister, Christina Hungsbrook Lamatina from the Graphic History Company. Civil conversations and learning is a must. Well said, Detria. Jennifer Lazarus, you are all doing critical work, and thank you for that. Detria, civility, the scarcest resource at this moment in time. Yeah. We have a civic engagement center here at Macalester College, and dedicated to Kofi Annan, and that work every day to find new voice, especially in the context of global conflict, whether it's Ukraine or Israel and Gaza and the West Bank, finding a way back to civility. We must find a way back. Oh my goodness, Sree, you're holding up my favorite book in the world.
Yes, so much to learn, folks. We want to take a break from politics. Everyone, get this book online or at your favorite bookstore, and you will learn so much. It's beautiful history of hip hop, but history of America. And the Walter, you would agree, the most influential art form of the late 20th century and 21st century.
Unbelievable the way music changes our human experience, whatever form, whatever genre. And the more that we got kind of an art form that allows for more expression, that allows us to hear voices that we wouldn't typically hear, that's ultimately what hip hop always was. And so to try and break through and find the people, as you said, as Luther Campbell, or you were just showing Eazy-E, you got Dougie Fresh and Salt and Pepper on the page. These were all people. MC Light, oh my goodness. Their genius with words and with music has changed all of our lives, even if we don't listen to hip hop every day. Just if you listen to country, if you listen to pop music at all, hip hop has completely transformed it. I don't know if I'm going to show my age with this, but when I grew up, Lawrence Welk was the popular music entertainment that everybody waited to hear at night. And so if y'all do not know who Lawrence Welk is, you're going back to a kind of popular version of classical music and ballroom dance. Very different from hip hop as a way to kind of connect. Oh my goodness, the art from Tim Fielder, which actually that's a great segue. And Linda Bernstein, thank you so much for the compliment on the book. Tim is with us, and he's been drawing portraits of all of the participants on the panel. And I want to give him a minute to get ready and set on so he can come on camera and share some of his work. But for those who don't know Tim and haven't had a chance to see what he does, his spontaneous artistry, his ability to basically capture moments, but emotions, the way the world changes, and the way it shows up on our faces and in our bodies. Tim is, from my view, the best Afrofuturist artist. He calls himself the OG Afrofuturist in humility to allow for Best to share a title with some of his colleagues. But my goodness, the spontaneity, the ability to generate a vision with no other guidance but just his heart and his hand and his mind. Tim is a brilliant contributor. I'm so lucky to work with him every day. So are you ready to show? Come on camera, Tim.
Yes, I am. Hello, everybody. How y'all doing? Now, my hand is hurting now because I've been drawing all these activists and thought leaders who are moving around and emoting and stuff. I'm like, man, they're not holding the pose. So forgive me, particularly as a rapidly aging middle-aged man, I can't see as well as I used to. So forgive me. So we're going to start off with Sree here. And so basically, can you all see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
We see a moon.
Oh, no. Okay, I see. Okay. All right, there we go. We're going to switch to the other thing. I have another app open as well. Don't worry, guys. We're going to get to that. But let's go here to this right here.
Like moon.
No. That's not it. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. So one of the things I'm doing here is Walter and I are doing a book on Kamala Harris. The Graphic History Company, we pride ourselves in trying to do things that are dope, that moves the conversation together. Walter wrote the words. It's called Vote for Democracy. This is page 1. I'm presently working on page 2. Walter wrote the beautiful words, so I was really tasked with trying to make his words not just emote, but also to tell the visual narrative point of what he's writing, right? So that's one of the things that I did. Additionally, on the next page, this is the second page, which I'm still in the process of doing. This here is the opportunity agenda. It's called Democracy. We're going to go here to the work in progress that I'm putting together for these images. So there were 9 panels on that page. So literally what I'm doing is animating each of the sun rises, right? And opportunity rises. So I have to paint and color all these things, and they're going to be placed into these panels. And then this particular comic will go out from the Graphic History Company, sent everywhere. The reason why we made it 2 pages for you folks who like to keep your stuff nonpartisan, you can either use this page, which is nonpartisan, or you can use this page, which is fairly partisan, or you can use both, and it will be spread far and wide to encourage people to vote, to get out there, to hopefully save democracy and do what we need to do. I also took the liberty of painting pretty much everybody on the panel, and I don't know if we have a chance to show that, but if we do, it'd be nice to come.
We got you, man. We got it.
You have it. So can you guys see Sree here?
Not yet.
Okay, all right. Now, I should also say that's one of the things, and I have to thank Neil, who is really the mastermind behind all of this. He really organizes everything. What it is that now I can share my screen if you guys want me to do, but it's up to you. I can present my screen. Just let me know. Please stay in the studio. Okay. That's how we're going to Neil.
Nodding.
All right. But the thing is that the objective for me as a visual artist, you guys have seen courtroom reporters, illustrators.
Yes.
Literally, this conversation here is history. Think about it. We have people who are involved with getting out the vote. John Lewis, right? Columbia University, Macalester College. I mean, I want to blow him up and stuff, but he's my dude. We do our book and we're making history. And me doing this means that I'm actually illustrating history as it happens in real time. So that is what we're doing. Switch your screen share. I'm going to do it. Do you want me to do it, Neil? Right quick, I can do it. Say yes or no. Let me know. I've been looking at you, what you're saying in the chat.
Yes, Tim. We need you to switch your screen share so we can put up
Okay.
the picture of Sree.
Let us all say
Right
a
now,
silent.
all we
Let
can
us
see is
all-
Kamala.
Okay, let us all say a silent prayer to hope that this works right. Here we go. So we're going to go here. I'm going to stop the screen for a second. Now we're going to present again. And this time, we're going to go with screen share. And we're going to choose a one. Thank goodness. We're going with Clip Studio Paint right here. So we're going to go entire. Well, hold on. Let me do this. Hang on. Sorry, we're going to go with entire screen. There we go. And go right there. All right, can you guys see this?
It's coming. Hey.
Thank you. I'm
Basi-
honored.
A full portrait. That's amazing.
Yes.
Now,
He is very animated. He doesn't like to stand still. Look at him moving now. See, that's why I said, imagine somebody who goes from joy to seriousness very quickly like that. You know, that's difficult. Then you got the highlights, because what I'm trying to do is to capture the environment in which he is emoting, in which he is saying what he needs to say. So that's one thing. Then we have here, I know, don't worry, Shawna, I didn't leave you behind. So I had to get Shawna, and her screen was very small, so my eyes are bad. Wonderful looking hair, by the way. Your hair is
Thank
amazing.
you. That's my Texas hair. Higher the
Yeah,
hair,
that is
closer
the
to
Texas
God.
hair. So there
Right.
we go. So I did that. By the way, Neil is very thorough. So once these images are done, I will send to him the stills as well as the animated variants, and these can be shared out to encourage people to get out the vote. Whatever it is that needs to be done to make sure that this country is at peace, and it is arriving at a place of connectivity, that we're doing that. All right, last one here. Don't worry about it, Detria. I did not forget you. Detria her hair is perfect, and the background is slamming. So I had to do that as well. Don't worry, coming here. I had to do, and she was really moving around. It's amazing, So there we go.
Gorgeous.
Thank
Gorgeous touch of purple. I love it.
thank
you. She's color coordinated. She's got the black and the purple going, and that is what I love doing. And I'm so grateful to Digimentors for allowing me to be here with the Graphic History Company to do this thing, and you guys coming in, and it's amazing to be not only draw history, but to actively participate and be a part of it.
We got comments from everybody saying great
That was
artistry.
very
They love it.
humbling.
That
Thank
was
you.
wonderful.
Thank you. You guys are humbling because I'm just an artist. You guys actually are out there doing the hard work on the ground. And what I'm hoping I can do at least is make you. It's my honor to do this. It is a privilege for me to draw you,
Wow.
because I'm recording literally you as a participant in history. These things will outlive us, and they'll be visible 200 years from now. When people look back on this period, these illustrations, hopefully the work we're doing, will be a part of that.
But isn't art and music the reflection of
Yes.
political change, right? I mean, that's.
You've obviously
you said-
done this before.
I mean, you're talking about hip hop, you're talking about art. That was reflective of those social movements, right? At least in
Yes.
my neighborhood, it was.
Yes.
And I feel like all of us have those memories attached to music. And what you guys are doing is so amazing, because the way we see it is it's the connective tissue where young people like Detria's reaching out to, where they feel like they have something in common, right? When you get kids in a room together, what's the first thing they start doing? Talking about what they saw on TV, or a video they shared, or a song they heard. That is the connective glue that makes us build these communities. I think it's amazing.
Thank you.
So
Thank
we're
you so
moving
much.
to the very end of the program. We have a comment question from Emberly. Music, the great common denominator. In your opinion, what is the responsibility of the artist to speak knowledge, peace, and inclusion, or togetherness? Some feel they are not role models, but hold the pen, connected to evoking a feeling or a thought or actions in some others. And so as we wrap up, I did want to give all the panelists a minute to offer a final comment. And so we always love Sree at the end, so we'll do it in reverse. We'll go Sree, and then Shawna, and then Detria.
I will start by saying how humbled I am to be with all of you, to see Tim do that artwork, to see the magic, what happens when Tim's art and Walter's words come together. And it's in the book, but now it's going to be in this exciting new comic that's going to come out the next couple of days. And to be with these amazing speakers, to be here with Detria and to be here with Shawna. It's humbling to see the hard work that's put in and day out to make democracy possible. It doesn't just happen. We take it for granted in this country. We all know friends of ours, close relatives who are sitting out the election. You saw that number, 68% are tense. There are others who don't even care the elections are happening because they think it's not going to affect them. It is going to affect every single person. People we love are going to be affected. So you cannot afford to sit this election out, folks. The most stunning stat that I keep quoting is that 81 million people voted for Joe Biden in 2020. 74 million voted for Donald Trump. 64 million Americans sat at home. 64 million in an election decided by a few dozen per precinct in a few states. So we're not talking about needing 60 million new people to vote. Just a few people will make a difference. Please go out, please vote, and let's get America healing again.
Yes. Shawna?
Well, I want to echo those sentiments. It is extremely humbling to be included in this conversation. And I also, in addition to thanking you all for having me and including me in this stellar company, I also want to thank everyone who's watching and listening. I know that everyone's busy and tired, but you obviously care or you wouldn't be here. And, to quote another song lyric, we are tired, we are weary, but we aren't worn out. I think right now we are just in this beautiful moment that sometimes it's hard to appreciate when you're working and juggling and stressed. But what you're doing right now, it really does matter. Whether it's pushing that button and sharing something that's political when maybe you normally do not, or having that kind of uncomfortable conversation with a friend or a family member, or sporting that shirt that shows that you're voting in an area that might raise some eyebrows. We are vocal in this space. We are used to being dragon slayers, all of us in our own different way. But what you do is going to impact countless people that see you and that haven't quite found their voices yet. So I imagine that there's a lot of inspiring stories that we have yet to hear. And I'm excited for this chapter to play itself out. I think it's going to be a historical, beautiful moment, and for all of us to create the next chapters together.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Detria, you started us off, so wrap us up.
It has been an honor and a joy to be with you this evening. I am grateful for just the time that you all have given, in addition to those who are joining us online. It is, as I think about, the role I serve as president and CEO of the John and Lillian Miles Lewis Foundation, it is truly a tremendous blessing. It is also a tremendous responsibility. While Congressman Lewis did found this foundation, and, it was set up to continue the work and so that we can serve as a primary keeper and promoter of his and his wife Lillian's legacy. The beauty is that the foundation doesn't do this work alone. Everyone in our democratic society has the responsibility and the opportunity to make our world a better place, a place that is more just, more peaceful, more loving. We're grateful that, so many people, even during this election year and beyond, have particularly taken time to amplify and share the legacy and the life of Congressman Lewis from a multitude of stages. And for people, like our board members who and his loving family and many others who knew him so well, they would tell you that right now, Congressman Lewis would be humbled for his name to continue to be shared, and that he is continuing to be lifted up during this time, and his life, his legacy, but more importantly, his example is what people are talking about. And that is what we hope that people see and feel as we move forward. I'm humbled to have been with you this evening, humbled to serve in this role, and just grateful for this conversation. So thank you.
All right, Tim, thank you so much for adding us in and making this the way it all came together for all of you. Thank you each individually. Arlene Nia Salandi says, these talks must continue. It is good to agitate people. Special shout out to Frederick Douglass, who lets us know agitate is the only thing we get for being democratic citizens. Mm-hmm. And then Leslie Ray Schaefer, education must ignite the courage to question, to challenge the norms, and to stir up good trouble. that will foster growth, justice, and transformation. And so the words of John Lewis are the best. And then Suda Frek, I already voted. Yes, if you haven't already, go immediately, but I'm sure you got to encourage more people to get out there and keep voting all the way through Election Day. Well done. Thank you, Emberly. Let's get out and vote. Have a wonderful night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good job.